What's up, guys? We'll grab a pen and jot this down. Today, we're going to talk about blockchain technology, something that most people don't understand. So, I'll talk about it in bits and pieces. Maybe I'll try to triangulate or maybe get all the information together in one database. I have a lot of it on my website, vajaracoli.com. But if you want to learn, we'll talk a little bit about how global ledgers work, why it's important, what's the future of blockchains and ledgers as a global database. So without further ado, let's talk about a global settlements layer. Today, the biggest change that's happening with blockchain technology is that we're moving from off-chain to on-chain. So let me explain. Today, the biggest thing we use is the internet. It's global. There are probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 billion people that use the internet. But what happened in the last 32 years or so, when the internet became open source or became accessible to the public after the US announced this release in in 1990 or 1991, when the internet became open source. And it means anybody on the computer with the computer can access the internet, access the databases. It's no longer restricted to private or military databases. So what happened? Everybody went from offline to online. It was a huge boom. All the infrastructure that was on one computer now became accessible to millions of computers across the world. 20 plus years later, we had a cell phone, we had social networks, we had new software. No longer was information stored on hardware or databases on site. So you can access information from anywhere. Now, I don't have to tell you how impactful this has been and how much it is still growing. So the cloud is the biggest piece. So if you think about, instead of having USB drive, you have a cloud of servers and you can access them from anywhere in the world. So now the next step in the technology wave is to go from off-chain to on-chain. What does that mean? Off-chain means information is not organized. It's not a unit of data in a block. It's not systematic, meaning I cannot read, or structured, I should say. It's not the same across the board. So it's really hard for me to understand what kind of tree this is and what kind of building this is and how it's different from the buildings behind me and how it's different from the trees in another state. And I need to structure that information so I can read it across the spectrum of the world. If I'm sitting in Europe or I'm sitting in Egypt and I'm sitting in a different country, city, state, why aren't all the communication systems on one chain? Meaning I can move information from here to somewhere else without disruption. So let me give you the real world example. The best way to think about this is how your data is organized either on your phone or how it's organized on a computer and it's contained within a login or your information's sitting within someone else's server. Best example, if you have social media accounts, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Google, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all of these have different usernames. So it's important to understand that, hey, I am logging into one account. I am one person though, but now I have to log into 6 accounts. So instead of just saying that I'm Vajaracoli and I'm going to go online, I have to turn on my computer, access my bank account. That's one login. And maybe if I have different banks, I have different logins. If I have multiple emails, work, personal, etc., I have different email accounts. But the reality is they're all tied to me as an individual. And if you start thinking about why isn't information tied to a unit, a digital wallet, a digital identifier, similar to like a social security number, then you start realizing that the current way of how information is transmitted across the internet doesn't make sense. It just doesn't work in terms of scale, meaning I open up a Facebook account, I use the same name, Vajaracoli, and then I open up a LinkedIn account and I have to change information. Let's say my address, I have to change my profile picture, which is a big one. If I decide to change it on one platform, I have to log into multiple accounts. And these accounts should be routing to my information. They should be asking me, has something changed? Do I look different? Am I changing a habit? Am I changing something? And if I change something, it should change across the board. But the reality is that Facebook, Google, TikTok, these platforms don't talk to each other, and the information, while it may be the same, they might be asking you the same question 15 times. It is not the same on the internet, meaning I cannot transfer. If I choose to take my data offline, I don't want to be on TikTok anymore. I don't want my information or content to be deleted. I may choose to store it in another server. So being able to take information offline, bringing it back online, that's a hassle. What you want to be able to do is say, hey, this information lives on my phone. It lives on one single identifier, maybe a digital wallet or a crypto wallet, and I will move this information. I give other people access to my information as I see fit. If I choose not to sell it, if I choose not to do something with it, I will do that. If I want my videos to live on YouTube versus Vimeo, that's my choice. I don't have to download, upload, redo it multiple times because these platforms can't talk to each other. So that's the underlying infrastructure of a global settlement layer, which is what blockchains are attempting to do. This is why it's important to create a decentralized network, decentralized internet that nobody controls. The information is the same across the board, and anybody can access it. You don't need to be a multi-billion-dollar business, and you don't need to have lots of money. You just need to be able to access the internet, maybe have a phone or a computer, and just understand this is my information. This is information that's attached to my identity, and this is how it's going to live forever. No one else has control over it. I have sovereignty over my data. So that's the underlying principle. I will expand more into this topic on a later date. Later, guys.